Husayn is the lantern of guidance and the ship to salvation, and the ship to salvation. الحسين مصباح الهدى وسفينة النجاة.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to our dear brothers and sisters from all over the globe. And thank you for joining us on Lantern of Light's Muharram Summit titled Wisdom Behind Grief Through Karbala with me, your host, Sakina Habib. I would like to extend my deepest condolences on the martyrdom of the master of martyrs, Aba Abdullah al-Husayn alayhi salam, and Lantern of Light would like to offer condolences to the Imam of our time, Ajlallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, on the tragedies that befell in Karbala. Once again, thank you so much all for joining us in this divinely Husseini banquet. Now, there is no day like your day, Ya Aba Abdullah al-Husayn, and Ashura lives on in our hearts when we finally locate our individual and collective spiritual resilience. With a broken heart, that moment becomes very powerful. In fact, it is very powerful. And in order to create a spiritual transformation within our souls, we need to do something about it. Now, this Ashura Muharram, we are incredibly blessed to launch a special campaign that marks not only the epic tragedy of Karbala and Imam al-Husayn alayhi salam, but also it allows us to see much more than beyond what Sayyidah Zainab salamullahi alayha saw. And when she said, Ma ra'aytu illa jamila, that I saw nothing but beauty. The grief that these holy infallibles went through and the challenges that they overcame really spread ripples of a universal message out for us into what does this grief mean to us today, and how can we translate this grief into practical actions today. So, inshallah, on today's program, we will be discussing about this. But before that, I just want to quickly highlight and let you know that Lantern of Light, in its humble initiatives, we have been able to facilitate several topical issues through podcasts, live programs, and soul transforming cohort workshops and masterclass programs with qualified therapists and Islamic scholars, from mental health well-being to emotional and spiritual well-being, transforming lives and fostering love and faith. And so we would encourage you to please do visit our soulful website on www.lanternoflight.co.uk, and also please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe to our inspirational channel, and please do share today's episode as much as possible. And inshallah, we look forward to hearing some of your feedback and comments, inshallah. Now, on today's program, inshallah, we will be joined by a very esteemed guest, a profound guest, inshallah, Shaykh Dr. Ali Al Hilli, who is the director of Dar al Islam Center in London. He is an Islamic speaker, author, and community activist, and he also serves as the chair of trustees for the Noor Relief Fund charity, and he has been involved in numerous community projects. So, inshallah, I would like to invite Sheikh on today's program, and let's follow today's discussion, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Ali Al Hilli. It's an absolute pleasure to have you, and I would like to extend my condolences during these ayam aza of Muharram, and I hope that inshallah may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our azadari, and may Allah accept all your hajats, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Sister, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Muhammad wa alihi al-Tahirin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We send our condolences to Imam al-Hujjah, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif, and to all our maraji' and all the mu'mineen all around the world on this occasion of the martyrdom of Aba Abdullah al-Husayn, Salamullahi alayh, and his companions and his family.
Indeed. On today's discussion, I would like to ask you a few questions on how, when we shed our tears during these Ayam Aza, and we remember Imam Husayn's sacrifice, what action do we need to bring about because of these tears? When we are grieving for Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, how do the tears shed for Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the epic tragedy of Ashura, help us in our healing journeys?
Ahsantum, thank you so much. A very important question, my dear sister, and something that, of course, we have to continuously remind ourselves that the revolution of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein wasn't one that we just pass by and remember and cry and do as a dari and matam for, but it's got to translate into action. It's got to translate into something that, of course, for us to make sure that we follow that particular path, the path of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein salamullah alayhi. And if we take sort of our mind back to the time when Abu Abdullah al-Hussein wrote that letter, the very infamous letter to Muhammad ibn Hanafiya, his half-brother, and he told him that I have not risen as an arrogant or mischief individual, but I have risen so that I can reform the ummah, perform this islah of ummati jaddi, of my grandfather, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and his father Ali ibn Abi Talib. And the way I'm going to do this reformation, is I'm going to do amr bil ma'ruf and nahi anil munkar, enjoin good and forbid evil. And so if we focus on this and we say, okay, we ask ourselves this question, and now it's Muharram, we are mourning, and mourning is part of that process. But then it's going to translate into something. So when we ask this question of what is it, what was the purpose, what was the mission behind Abu Abdullah al-Husayn's reformation or revolution, is Islah. And that Islah was needed. If we look back and think, why didn't Imam Hussein salamullah alayhi, just when he realized that Yazid has taken over, Muawiyah has died, the people are of course going to follow that particular path, the corrupted path of Yazid and Bani Umayyah, why didn't he just give a lecture? He goes out and he says, "Oh mu'mineen, I gotta give you a talk. Okay, I've got to give you a lecture about what's going to happen. You're going to follow me because I am the grandson of the Prophet and I am the son of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, and this is the Ahlul Bayt, this is the right path, and wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah." And then he had another lecture maybe. Or for example, he might have had written lots of letters to everyone and etc. No, what he did was he realized that there was a big challenge right in front of him. Okay, he read the situation politically and in terms of theologically, and he said, "I've got to do something about it. I've got to get up and do something about it." And that getting up and doing something about it is something that follows the path of his father and his grandfather, and of course also the path of the prophets. If we just pause, Sister Sakina, on this, and we look at the word Islah. Okay, so he said, "Innama kharajtu li talabil islahi fi ummati jaddi," and he said, "I have risen so that I can reform this Islah." Now, if we look at this word Islah, what does it actually mean? Because we've got to understand this, don't we? You know, every year we commemorate the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah, but we've got to really make sure that Al-Hujjah Salamullah alayhi is proud of us being the follower of Hussein. The follower of Imam Husayn Salamullah alayhi is an individual who truly practices Islah. In my opinion, is an individual who practices Islah, because Hussein practiced Islah. So I've got to practice Islah, surely. So for us to practice Islah, we've got to understand what Islah means. And Islah is reform. It's opposite of corruption. It's for me to make something good, to make something better. And if we look back at the Quran and look back at the prophets, majority of them, and how the Quran describes it, they wanted to become those al-muslihin, those as-salihin, those individuals who do good. Make us one of those who are as-salihin. And of course, for you to be one of those as-salihin, you should be a muslih in Arabic, which is someone who is an individual who reforms, an individual who does good, who makes sure that when there is something bad, I make sure I make it to good, right? And this is amr bil ma'ruf and nahy an munkar. When I see something that is bad, I want to make it good.
I would just like to interrupt here, as you mentioned that, okay, one has to, do amr bil ma'ruf and should be the one who should fix things in the society. But oftentimes it happens that when someone wants to make those reformations and changes in the society, there are a couple of people or friends in that circle who object that and who are not very comfortable with those changes. So what do you think, what should be some pointers that you would like to share on how one can do that, how Imam Husayn tried to do that, because he also had people who were against him.
Yeah, but look, Islah is not going to be comfortable. Okay, and that's the thing. If Islah is for you and I to do it, and it's a comfortable process, then everyone will do it. But look at how Abu Abdullah Hussein Salamullah alayhi did. Majority of people were very uncomfortable with the revolution. Majority of people, and we're talking about Muslims here. We're not talking about Jews or Christians or atheists or other people, mushrikeen. No, we're talking about Muslims, okay, who were very uncomfortable with the reformation of Abu Abdullah. So if people are uncomfortable with the way that you are reforming, that means you're doing something correct. You're doing something right. And of course, not everyone, and you're the only one, of course, that's not right. But of course, there are people, wise individuals, who are with you in this particular path. And your fitrah actually says this is the right thing to do. And when we go back to the prophets, this is what they did. You know, the Nabi Nuh Salamullah alayhi, when Nuh was faced with his people 950 years, they put their fingers in their ears and they took their clothes and put it over their head. And they said, we don't want to listen to you, right? But he continued, he persevered to perform Islah. And that's what needs to be done. When we look back at the Quran, for example, Ibrahim Salamullah alayhi, in chapter 26, verse 83, he says, Rabbi habli hukman wa alhiqni bis-salihin. Oh Allah, grant me wisdom and make me one of those who are as-salihin, those people who are righteous individuals, right? He wanted to become, this is the dua of Ibrahim. And also when we look at Yusuf Salamullah alayhi, Yusuf Salamullah alayhi, he, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him this opportunity to be someone who's very important in government, right? And he had everything. And his last dua, one of his last duas was that, Rabbi qad, in chapter 12, verse 101, Rabbi qad ataytani min al-mulki. Oh Allah, you gave me, granted me this authority. وَعَلَّمْتَنِي مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ, and you taught me the interpretations of dreams, right? فاطر السماوات والأرض أنت ولي في الدنيا والآخرة. Oh Allah, you're the originator of the heavens and the earth. You are my guardian in the world, right? توفني. What was his ambition? He says, God tawaffani Musliman. Make sure I die as a Muslim, as someone who submits to Allah, submits to you, because Islam is submission. وَأَلْحِقْنِي بِالصَّالِحِينَ. And make sure that I am one of those individuals who are as-salihin. So when we look at those prophets, and this was their dream, this was their ambition, make sure that I die as someone who is a muslih, someone who's a righteous individual, someone who does good things. Make sure that part of doing these good things is make sure that the bad, I turn it into good. And through that comes the process of reformation.
Thank you so much, Shaykh. Now let's touch upon some practical points on how I can become a better person today when I go and attend these azaz. What are the lessons that I can apply in my life? How can I translate this grief into practical action today? It could be through my akhlaq. It could be through my kindness and compassion. What incidents happen, for example, during mosque, during Azza, during the month of Azza. So can you shed some light on that, please?
Yes, absolutely. The tear that is coming down your face during the Azza of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn, this blessed tear that we shed during these particular nights, this blessed tear, this grief that we go through has to translate into something that is action. And this is what Abu Abdullah Hussein expects from us. Yes. And it's really important we highlight this problem we have, my dear sister and viewers, is that the expectation is much larger than how much we are delivering at the moment. The delivery is brilliant. The whole ummah, the Islamic ummah, the specifically the Shias, mourn the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah. But what happens after that? What happens, my dear sister, is that we do the 10 nights, we cry, we grieve, and this is important, it's vital, it's essential. Okay, we grieve for the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah Hussein and his companions and family. But then after the Ashra of Muharram, we tend to sort of the trajectory of trying to be a Husseini sort of falls, and we go back to our old habits and we start doing things that we used to do before Muharram. And I question that and I say, well, where was this tear? Where's it gone? That tear for Abu Abdullah, it should continue. It should translate into action after the Ashra Muharram. So what should we do? That's the question. And for me, I think we go back to Abu Abdullah, and he read the situation that he was in, and he read the political, he read the ideological dangers that were surrounding the Muslim Ummah at that time. And so we've got to do the same. We've got to read what is happening in the world right now, what's happening in my own community, what's happening in my own family, what's happening to my own self, and also to a large extent what's happening in the world. And how can I, as a Husseini, not just only for the first 10 nights, but for 365 days a year, how can I, as a Husseini, as a proud Husseini, who grieves every time, who sheds a tear for the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah, how can I be this reformer, this Muslim? And that is the question. And when I look at the world right now, we look at the modern world, okay? We look at the world that we're living in, my dear sister and viewers, is that we live in a capitalistic world style, especially us in the West. We are being drawn into a machine that continuously wants wealth. Okay, so I am, people say I am busy. This 4-letter word. When you speak to someone, you say, where are you? Where have you been? You say, oh, I'm busy. You say, what are you busy with? Oh, I'm busy with work. I am busy with doing all sorts of shopping. I am busy with trying to really make sense of the world I live in. And this is because we live in a capitalistic lifestyle where we are continuously required to work. we're continuously required to get more money, more income. Okay.
Right.
And there's so much pressure. There's so much pressure on us to build a nice house. There's so much pressure for me to get the latest cars. There's so much pressure for me to make sure that I wear the best of clothes, the designer clothes, because my friends, even if I can't afford it, but my friends have it. So therefore I've got to have it as well. And there's huge amounts of pressure going on because this is what the society presents. And so when I look at the world, when I look at that capitalistic lifestyle that we live in, when I look at that materialistic lifestyle that we live in, when I also look at this individualistic lifestyle that we live in, we, my dear sister, what we're doing is we've forgotten each other. We've forgotten each other because I am so occupied with my own life and my own world. I don't call this individual who I call a friend for a long, long time. I actually just maybe forward them some WhatsApp messages for Eid or for Muharram. I say, oh, condolences on the martyrdom of Baba Abdullah. I forward these images or emojis or whatever they are these days, right? I do that because I don't have time to pick up the phone and speak to this person. I don't have the time to actually invite them to my home and let's have some chai and talk about what's actually really happening in your life. Is there anything I can help you with? I don't have the time to get out and knock on the door of my neighbor and say, how are you? I don't have the time to come to the center and sit down and listen to the talk. I'd rather watch it in my home in a live. Okay, of course, there are people who are unable to do that. There are people who are disabled. There are people who are unable to leave their homes. That's absolutely fine. But what about those people who are able, but they just I just can't really be bothered to attend the Majlis of Abu Abdullah? Or not just even the 10 nights. What about the other 355 days in the year? Because we live an individualistic lifestyle. You see, my sister, there is an issue going on, especially with our youth. Imagine, do you know what a Petri dish is?
No.
A Petri dish is what we use in labs, okay, to grow bacteria.
Yes.
These Petri dishes. I don't know. We call them
Yes.
Petri dishes here in the UK. Okay, and these Petri dishes, you've got to make them in the right environment, the right temperature, the right what we call the agar. Sometimes they have the chocolate agar or they have different agars, so that the bacteria can grow, can go comfortably. And then there's a need for that. Then we extract the bacteria, extract the DNA from them, whatever. Okay, but the aim is to grow the bacteria in that particular agar plate, right? In that Petri dish. Now, imagine you were to create that particular agar plate, and then the bacteria do not grow.
Right.
There is a problem with the agar plate, correct? If the bacteria does not grow, the environment was not in a particular healthy state for the bacteria to grow. There's been a contamination, okay, or it wasn't even prepared properly.
Yes.
Now imagine us, my dear sister, we are trying to grow in this agar plate of the world.
Shaykh, I can't hear you. Shaykh, I can't hear you. Your voice has just suddenly gotten muted. Okay, let me just check what's happening. Sorry. Yeah, Sheikh, you've been muted. Okay, now you're back. Yeah, no problem. You can continue. Sorry.
So in that particular Petri dish, okay,
Yes.
we are now living in this. Imagine we are living in this agar plate, this Petri dish, and
Yes.
we are not growing. And I mean spiritually, we're not growing. We're empty inside. And so what do? We've got to look at this world we live in. We look at the environment that we are growing in, and the environment is contaminated, like how these bacteria, they are living in this particular agar plate that they are is contaminated and they're not growing. And so
Yeah,
we're
very
not
true.
growing spiritually because our environment is contaminated. There are so many things that are attractive in our world right now. There is the Instagrams, and there's the social medias, and there's the TVs and the cinemas, and there's so many things that are attractive in the world, right? That is taking us
Right.
away from God. We are taking slowly. We're moving away from Allah Subhanahu wa Taala. And so
Very
when you ask me about what is the problem, what are the challenges? This is the challenge. The challenge is the modern world at the moment we live in, especially us in the West, what is called the modernity, is taking
right.
us away from the divine. It's taking us away from taking us away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we've got to be conscious. Inside is empty. So Hussein salamullahi alayhi, my dear brother, my dear sisters and brothers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to connect to him through the Ahlul Bayt salamullahi alayhi. And what Imam al-Husayn salamullahi alayhi did in Karbala with his family, with his companions, is a reminder for us all to try to reform our ummah so that we can get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the challenges we are going through now, the modern world is contaminated with so much attractions, so much desires. It's more than any other time. Social media is killing our children spiritually,
Very
right?
spiritually.
What are we
Right.
doing about it? As Husayniyun, what are we doing about it? Okay, so these are our elders are getting more and more lonely. Let me give you some statistics in America. You know, in America, my dear sister, 66% of all adults in the United States, they use prescription drugs. 66%. Okay, and 27% of the US adults, they have multiple chronic conditions, right? And around 42% of the people in America are obese. 42% are obese, right? It's because of the lifestyle we live in. There is all these fast foods, and we love to grab a fast food. And if you look at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they used to eat healthy. They used to engage in a healthy way, right? And they used to actually walk a lot, move around. Now we have cars everywhere. We take taxis. We don't
Very
even want
comfortable homes.
the mall, and also shopping. We can call either on our phones. Bring me some food. We're not even bothered to cook
Exactly.
our kitchens.
Very true. Very
You know,
true. We've got online apps now.
yeah,
Everything is easily accessible. So
easily
true.
accessible. There's so many apps, and the whole cooperation of this, how many so many companies, they're
Yeah.
fighting to get our attention through social media, right?
Very true.
And the almost 1 in 5 children, adolescents between ages of 2 to 19 have obesity problems. Our
Obesity,
children
yes.
are sitting at home more. They're more on their phones. They're getting back problems. Having mental health problems, huge amounts of mental health problems.
Very
Depression and
true.
anxiety is massive all around the world. And we've got to ask ourselves this question. This is the presentation of the modern world. The modern world is taking us further away from God, more towards trying to engage in social media, engage in entertainment, engage in things that are taking us towards depression, anxiety, and we're much more obese, which more lazy, we're more lonely, and more individualistic. We don't want to
Right.
connect with each other. There's a high among teenagers. They don't want to talk to each other other than hide behind the screen. And
Very
so
true.
these presentations, my dear sister, that we are presented in our 2024, During the time of Imam Husayn, it was Yazid who came out, right, and took Islam away in his own version and their own Bani Umayyah version. Hussein stood up and said, action, I need to take action against this Yazid. And he took it back to the path of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Imam Ali sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What is our role right now? Our role, our Islam, our true Islam, the godly Islam of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad is slowly being taken away by the modern world, by the desires, even by the politicians and by the certain individuals who are, of course, have a separate agenda.
Very
But
true.
what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that the fundamental thing, and you've asked me about practical things, the fundamental thing that we need to do, my dear brothers and sisters, is we need to start going back to the self and filling the self with spirituality. Ask this question. Use the time of Muharram. Use the time to actually delve into the dua of Yom Arafah of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. How many of us have not just read it? Don't just read it. It's not about reading it. It's about delving into the meanings, because that is a godly dua. That will take you back to your own self and start to understand the self. Who are you? Okay? Try to really understand the self through Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. Get to understand God ultimately through Abu Abdullah al-Husayn. Because once I start to understand myself and then I start to understand and comprehend God, I start to reform myself and then start to reform the ummah. I start to really become more an individual who cares about others, an individual who identifies that social media is a problem for our children and for myself. And I start to limit the amount of social media. I start to really comprehend and understand that materialism, what I'm really running towards money, running towards wealth, running towards making sure that I get the best cars, even if I was to take a loan in my credit card. Doesn't matter if I have a loan and I have high interest rates on my credit, at least I have a really good car to show off in front of people. But I know this particular car is gonna be old in a few years, but I've got to renew this car. But this mentality, by the way, I'm not against getting cars and new cars and things, but make sure that you don't fall into this system, this modern world of dragging you into focusing about materialism. Drive a nice car,
Yes.
but importantly, give time for yourself and the important connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Very true. And it also connects deeply to our mental health, because I was reading this somewhere the other day and it really touched my heart. It said that when Allah wishes to help, He lets us weep. Well, wherever water flows, life flourishes. And wherever tears fall, divine mercy is shown. And, as you mentioned, the way social media is taking over our lives and how it influences our mentality and the peer pressure and everything, there comes a point in every person's life where you come into this meltdown, like you reach this breaking point and now you want to cry out. You want to talk to someone, you want to express your feelings because you feel lost.
Yeah,
And when we attend these Muharram majalis, subhanallah, there's that peaceful feeling to it. That atmosphere just changes one. You forget all your anxiety and depression, because when you're lamenting and mourning and remembering the tragedy of Karbala and Imam Hussein, you sort of relate with with every person who played a crucial role on that day. Be it a mother, be it an older person, be it a good friend, be it a youngster in the form of Janab Ali Akbar alayhi salam. So we sort of connect and relate, and our heart automatically feels very relaxed and relieved after listening to these lectures, and you really do want to bring that change in your life. When you listen to these lectures, you're like, okay, once I'm out of this mosque, I'm going to bring this change within me. And we do that, as you said, during the first 10 days. But
That's the
then,
thing. That's the
yeah,
thing. A lot
after
of
that,
people want to do
yeah,
that, but how many actually do it? How many translate it into action?
very true, very true.
That is the fundamental point, isn't it?
Yes,
That if there is anything that anyone wants to take out of this particular episode, is this that the tears that come down on our face, the martyrdom, the lamentation, uh, all that is very important, is essential. But if it's not translated into action, then it weakens that martyr. Okay. Yes, on that moment, as you said, at that moment, I forget all my worries, I forget all these things when I am lamenting on the martyrdom of Abu Abdullah. But I've got to take that lamentation, that lamentation when I'm doing all this, that needs to translate into action, not just at that moment, but for the next 355 days until Ashur, the next Ashur.
very true.
That
Yes,
needs to be done. And some people will say, okay, what am I supposed to do? What I am telling you to do is to focus on yourself, focus on the inner, look at inside you, examine inside you, examine your heart, and see, why is it so empty? If it is empty, and I need to fill it with the wisdom of Ahlul Bayt Salamullahi alayhim. I need to fill it with the wisdom of the Quran. I need to fill it with the wisdom of Nahj al-Balagha. I need to fill it with the wisdom of Sahih al-Sajjadiyah. Yes? I need to
yes,
continuously inject my heart with all this knowledge and wisdom, the knowledge of God. That's my mission. That's the mission of Abu Abdullah. That was the mission of Abu Abdullah. That was the mission of Ahlul Bayt Salamullahi alayhim. Continuously inject it. But the modern world, trust me, the modern world is trying to take us away from God. Everything is designed so it can take me away from God, especially our youth. The attractiveness of what's happening. They are changing what a true human being means. This
very true.
fitrah, this fitrah that Allah has created within us, they try to close it. The
Yeah,
fitrah screams and says, there needs to be something. There needs to be a connection to a divine. I close it by looking at social media. I look at that prank. Have you realized, sister? I don't know. I've realized. But when I
yeah,
look at, for example, the Palestine
yeah,
situation, I look at a video and I say, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. And I scroll, and then a new thing comes, which is completely different. It's like a prank or something about food or diet or whatever. I think, what is that related to this? But I continuously scroll. The algorithms are changing. Yes,
yeah, very true.
the algorithm will show you about Palestine and what's happening in Gaza, but then in between all this, it will throw you something. It will throw you a something juicy, something really a prank or someone doing something or things like that will take your attention away from the Gaza situation, or from some of a lecture that you've a snippet of a lecture that you've just seen, so that it can take you slowly away from God. And that is very much calculated. We've got to be cognizant about this,
Yeah,
don't you think?
absolutely. Very true. And you're so right. We've been seeing a lot on our feeds since the last couple of months. And I think there was even a point where, people then start feeling desensitized towards what's being shown, because every day, you're being bombarded with the same footages and the same horrendous images. And, sometimes it's so difficult to even decipher between what is the real truth, what is false, what is right. And this is, I think, the situation where, as Hussainis and as Muslims, we sort of struggle, and our iman and our faith sort of gets blurred, or sort of gets disturbed.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
And you know, just 2 points. There are a lot of points to talk about this, but there's 2 points. One is, you know, a lot of our youth, and I hope the youth can watch this. You know, if they you know, they see the most channel that has the highest subscription in YouTube. Okay, is this guy? I don't want to say the name in here, but there's this guy who has 265 million subscribers, and a normal guy. Do you know what he does? He does pranks. He does, you know, goes and, you know, just entertainment, really, right? One of the highest video, most popular video he had is 615 million views. 615 million views. Okay, and most of them are probably the youth, our teenagers and the youth, because they love this entertainment, they love this prank, they love these things. This is taking me away from God. This is how it's designed. It's taking me away from the Ahlul Bayt, taking me away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you asked me about what is the challenges right now. This is our challenge. We've got to educate ourselves to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fill that space, okay? And also importantly, go out there and make sure that we have programs, we have events, we have trips, we have camps, we have ways to try to tap in to the heart of the youth. The youth sometimes are being lost in this world of social media, in this world of entertainment. It's not like it was 10 years ago. It's not like when I was brought up. I'm 43 now, okay, or 44, right? And previously, it wasn't like that for me. No, there was no social media. Social media has taken a huge amount of our youth time. They spend hours, 4-5 hours of entertainment per day, instead of maybe you spending 1 hour on social media, but actually 3 or 4 hours of going out. What's happened with going out? We need to go out. We need to. Where is our relationship with nature? And inshallah, during this Muharram, I have a talk will be in New Jersey, right, in America. I will be giving majalis there, and one of my talks will be Islam and nature. Where is our relationship with nature? Instead of looking at this particular social media, looking at this relationship we have, can we not spend that relationship with nature? You know, there is so much studies, Sister Sakina, about you talk about mental health, about how going out in nature and appreciating and comprehending nature helps your mental health, helps to reduce anxiety. By your eye, just connecting with that tree, connecting with that environment, connecting with that atmosphere helps in your brain. Okay?
Right.
And walking is a beautiful thing, and breathing that air and focusing on your breath and doing these meditative stuff, right? Being in that lovely environment, wherever you are, by the way, okay, wherever you are. I know you're in Tanzania, right?
Yes, I'm in Tanzania. Yes, and I'm actually blessed to be in Tanzania because of the nature that we have. We've got Mount Kilimanjaro,
I haven't been, but I've heard it's a wonderful, beautiful place.
Yes, yes.
Here in the United Kingdom, we have so much greenery. If you're in America, you have amazing places, right? So go out in nature. Wherever you are, you have nature. Wherever you are in this world, you have nature. Go there, spend some time. It's really important. Don't say, no, I don't have time, I'm busy. This is what we need to do. You talk about Muharram, you talk about reformation, you talk about action of grief. Go out there, fill your heart with spirituality. Let us understand and comprehend that the human being is being redefined. The role of a human being in this world is redefined. Let's talk about artificial intelligence, Sister Sakina.
Yes.
We hardly talk about artificial intelligence.
Oh my God, yes.
Artificial intelligence, my dear sister, is taking us, is destroying the nature of a human being.
Yes.
We are now more and more reliant on robots. We are relying on these chatbots,
Yes.
Copilot,
ChatGPT.
everything.
Very true.
I am not even bothered to research. I'm not
Yes,
even
true.
bothered to read a book, right?
Very
I
true.
just sit
University
down,
students,
yeah,
it's
ChatGPT,
the way university students once upon a time used to actually manually research, look up into books. Now it's just they're typing their topics, getting everything prepared, copying, pasting. Where's the hard work?
there's no hard work. Even they
Yes.
write codes now. They write programming codes. You ask
Yeah.
ChatGPT. I asked it yesterday. I had a problem in Excel, Microsoft Excel, and I said, "Okay, how can you do this?" And it gave me a script. We don't even use our brains anymore to try to program.
True.
Yeah. So this is
Sad.
just
It's
the
sad.
beginning, by the way. You know that in China, in other places, they're doing some things that are extraordinary. And the ethical questions we've got to ask about AI. AI, of course, has huge amounts of positivity, by the way. We don't want to be people who's just, there's huge amounts of positivity. But of course,
Yes.
there are ethical problems with AI.
Problem.
What about privacy, data privacy issues? What about in terms of, there are the super, in the future, they got this thing called the artificial super intelligence, ASI, where it will be even more intelligent than human beings.
Oh,
Okay. Yeah. And they're designing these things now. They're absolutely designing them to be much more intelligent than human beings. People now are in China and others are designing robots to be your partner. Certain individuals, they don't even marry you can Google this. They don't even marry a human being. They marry a robot. And this robot, okay, when it becomes annoying, you can just switch it off. They say, well, my partner, if they become annoying, I can't switch them off, right?
oh my God. This is like you're losing that human touch, which is our fitra, as you said. It's, they're wiping it off.
There's so many hadiths, verses of the Quran tell us about, the importance of marriage, the importance of generating that union between the two, having reproducing, producing children, right? A lot of these things are slowly changing. AI is going to revolutionize the world. Give it a few more years, you'll see we've got cars that are self-drive. We've got self-driving cars now, but cars that drive by itself, there's no need for a human being to be in it. You press a button and you can record this and see it's going to happen in the next few years. You have in your app, you say, I call for a taxi. The taxi will be a driverless car.
Got it.
The taxi will come with no driver. And you get in and you start talking to this robot inside the car, and it will take you to your destination. There's no human being. There's no interaction anymore with a human being. Things will be much different to it is now. We've got to ask these ethical questions. What is our position in this as Muslims? And people are talking now about Shaykh GPT, Imam GPT, right? Mufti GPT, right? So where is this going? Are we now relying more on ChatGPT? I was asking ChatGPT, according to Sayyid Sistani, what does this mean? And it gives me a whole details of his fatwa, and there were incorrect stuff that he was giving. And it's interpreting. Remember, it's not a copy paste. It's interpreting.
Yeah, it's interpreting. That's very dangerous. That's where it misleads the youths of today. This is what's happening.
Exactly. Yeah. So we go back to grief. We go back to how can we translate our grief into action? The grief that we are, rightly so, we are grieving at the time of Abu Abdullah al-Husayn and these particular nights. How I've got to, my advice, my dear brothers and sisters, is focus on your modern world. Where is your modern world taking you? The modern world that I have read, modernity that I have read, such as individualism, materialism, reductionism, all these isms, right, is taking us away from God. They are redefining what a human being is. You've just got to look around you and see things are moving very fast. Technology is taking us with social media, with AI bots, with all these things. It's taking us completely to a different realm. Okay, I am much more indulged in all this, and I'm leaving nature. I am leaving the self. I am not fulfilling the self. Okay. And all this, I am engaging in the world, in what the world is giving me. Now, I'm not saying don't engage in the world and sit at home and just focus on prayers. No, of course not. It's expected of us to engage in this world, but be vigilant of where it will take you. And this is reformation of the 21st century. I need to make sure that I stand firm when it comes to my principles. I need to make sure that I stand firm, like how Hussein ibn Ali did. I stand firm in today, the 21st century, of what the modern world is presenting to me. The modern world is presenting something very, very adventurous. It could be good. There's a lot of positives in it. But I've got to make sure I understand, I'm cognizant, especially for our youth. Where is this taking our youth? And we've got to continuously understand, Sister Sakina, that what is our purpose in life is to get closer to God. Are these technologies, all these particular things taking me away from God or taking me closer to Allah? Right? I use what I can use to take me closer to God, and I leave what I leave, things that take me away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Being cognizant, being aware of all these things is a vital, vital step in our Islah stage of reformation and being true Hussainis, inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you so much, Shaykh, for that amazing, insightful discussion. And here is the question that we leave out to all our viewers today, that with all that we highlighted and discussed today, let's think again, are we progressing or regressing? And how are we standing today as true Hussainis? And let's think about how we're applying the true foundation that Imam Husayn alayhi salam led for us, practically in our lives. Are we really applying it? Let's think over it, inshallah. And with that, we would like to end today's discussion. Please make sure to like today's program, to subscribe to our channel, to keep sharing this episode as much as possible. Please do let us know your comments and the feedback. And we would like to remember all our marhumin, inshallah. We would let's remember them with Surah Al-Fatiha, inshallah. And let us remember Imam Husayn alayhi salam. Let us all recite the salam together of Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah الحسين وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل فرجهم. And we pray for the tawfiq, that inshallah may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the tawfiq to be on the right path, and we do not get diverted with all these distractions that we see in today's modern world. And may we all be true Hussainis, inshallah. And I would like to thank Shaykh for his precious time. Jazakumullah. And with that, I'll be signing off. This is your host, Sakina Habib. Jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.